Okay, so we are now live on Facebook. Hi, Rachel Lemon. Thanks for joining Creative Hearts Conversations today. We're on episode 5. So we're currently doing a Words of the Wise, I guess we're marathon of people that I'm connecting with from Words of the Wise. I'm just looking at my tea actually. I've just got some. It says, "Those who have found their fulfillment are blessed." So I'm just like, I love getting little notes. I don't know if you've ever had these before, Rachel, yogi teas.
No, I don't drink tea.
Oh, you
So
don't do, it's herbal.
yeah, no, I'm not really a hot drink drinker.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got my water as well. So I thought I'd have two to kind of choose between the two, depending on what my taste buds want in the moment. So depending on my intuition, whether it's hot or whether it's cold, because today we're going to be talking a bit about intuition. Um, yes.
Yeah, like crystal infused
Oh, nice. So
silver.
is that got
Healing.
what's that got in?
It's got amethyst, which is for healing and sort of calm.
Hmm. And then is
Feel.
it juice? It looks like juice or something.
Yeah, I'm bad at drinking water. It's Ribena.
That's fine. Um, I'm just gonna, so anyone that's joining us, I'm just gonna check that it is going live and I'll share it on my other pages as well. So you can comment underneath and just ask Rachel any questions, ask me any questions, or both of us. And yeah, just any questions you have about the topics of connecting to your inner magic and intuition. So I think these topics kind of link to each other. Don't you, Rachel? How would you describe um, both of those things, like what inner magic means and what intuition means, and what are the differences and similarities between those things?
So I think obviously we've all got intuition, and it's something that we have to um, connect to sometimes. We might lose that throughout life as we go through like traumas and busy jobs and just life takes over. We lose that kind of inner magic and that connection to our intuition that we have as children. So when we're a child, we'll like run around, we just instinctively do what comes naturally. We don't overthink it. Everything's magical. I don't like I grew up in the countryside, so like wishing on dandelions, making spells with like rose petals and all of that kind of thing. So like when you're a child, things are really magical, aren't they? I mean, if we look at now Christmas, as a child, Christmas is like super magical, isn't it? You believe that someone's coming down your chimney and they're going to fill your house up with presents. It's all kind of, everything's magic. Even like tricks, you'd always have like an old uncle or someone who'd do the like card trick or pull the coin out from behind their ear and that kind of thing. So I think it's as we go through life, it's easy to like lose that connection. And obviously a little bit about my background is I've worked in healthcare all my life, but I've also had a long time abusive partnership, and I've also got a chronic illness which is incurable. So part of trauma that, and we all go through different types of trauma, whether it's losing someone we love, etc., can cause us to shut down and maybe not trust our intuition. So it's important that we can reconnect to it and re-find that inner magic, because I think if we allow ourselves, like we've all got magic within us, and it enables us to like find that sparkle, but to be the hero in our own journey, in our own story.
Yeah.
And I think it's like finding our inner magic is the secret to living an inspired life. Look what we do, if it comes from within, we don't need all these material things. So at any sort of given moment in our life, which isn't always easy, but we do have the power to say, right, this is my story and I'm in charge of how it ends, and take control. And again, that's not always as easy as I make it sound, but we have all got that within us. And so the more we connect to our intuition, the more we trust our inner power, the better we're going to be able to cope with all these things that life throws at us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as well, you know, the benefits as well of having, yes, the magic's within us, but also having a connection, like a circle, like within the book, we found a circle of creative and spiritual women who all hold similar or same beliefs. We might have all had different traumas, but it connects us all. So it's also about making sure we've got people in our lives that lift us up and inspire us, they make us laugh, cry, we can share our stories. So also remembering, although the magic is within us, we're not completely alone in life, and we need to surround ourselves with people who value us and bring out the best in us, not the people that knock us down. And sometimes that can be hard as well, setting boundaries, because, you know, again, we've all got someone in our life, whether it's a relative, whether it's a partner, whether it's someone at work, that might cause us to feel a little bit bad about ourselves, or obviously we feel how we let people make us feel, but, you know, we've all been there where someone said something and it's upset us. Or so it's about having that really strong inner belief, isn't it, that we're worthy. And something that, again, when as a child we just bat these things off, but again, as you go through life, you start to take on board all of these things, that people's other opinions and the way people treat you can make you lose that little bit of sparkle. So it's about sure that we get it back, isn't it?
Yeah. So just a little bit of background just for anyone that's joining us. So we're going to be doing a workshop on this topic of connecting to your inner magic and your intuition. So that's going to be happening on December the 15th, 6:30 till 8:30 p.m. That's GMT, so London time. And we'll drop some links underneath. But also, me and Rachel are both part of a book called Words of the Wise, and it's just come out now, and it's actually a bestseller on Amazon. Just tell me a little bit, Rachel, about how that felt for you to be part of this community of women and to be recognized, to have your voice heard and seen and recognized as wise. And just like, because sometimes as women we feel, I know for me, like sometimes we don't always feel valued or recognized within, you know, society, because maybe our ideas are sort of like put down as like silly, you know, like, oh, it's just, you know, they're spiritual, or what, you know, like as if it's some kind of thing to be laughed at or mocked. Like, how did it feel for you to actually be honored in your spirituality?
So for me, I've again, part of my health career, I was always a writer and I was an editor, pharmaceutical journal. And I've always I found a poem that I wrote at school, so I've always read and written. And again, I think that's really an important part of childhood. And sometimes as I've been a teacher in my adult life, I've noticed the children that haven't read, it's really obvious. And I think, again, reading is magical. So I used to read like loads of Enid Blyton books, and they all had all these magical adventures. So, you know, even like, or The Magic Garden was one of my favorite books, you know. So behind the door was this whole
The Secret Garden.
The Secret Garden.
I love that book. It's so
magical. Like reading as a child, it opens up your existing imagination and it expands it, and it makes you believe in all these things, you know. Even like Roald Dahl books, they're all magical, aren't they? James and the Giant Peach, and you know, the witches, but all of them, Matilda, yeah, you know, Matilda's, you know, a little icon, isn't she? You know, the way she could just use her mind to like get her own back on the teacher and control the energy. So yeah, she's a little star. And I think now she's just come out, hasn't it, Matilda the musical?
Yeah.
So
I always wanted to be Matilda when I was younger. I used to look at things and like try and make them fall over.
Yeah, I've kind of got a bit of that skill, but that's probably a different story. But yeah, the other day I looked in the mirror and thought I looked like Mrs. Trunchbull. So
oh god.
I was out topped up in the garden, and, you know, when you catch a glimpse of yourself, and I'd like a big puffer jacket. I was like, oh. Not the look I'm going for. So I've lost track now of where we are. So what were we talking about?
We're talking about the book and
Oh yeah, so with the book, yeah, so I've always loved writing, and part of actually this summer, I was talking in another workshop about PR, looking at setting up my own business, and it reminded me I'd kind of forgotten, when you've been through a big trauma, you forget about big parts of your life. And I actually forgot. I used to love, I'd even forgotten that I was on this editorial board for years. I mean, it wasn't just, it was years of my life, and I'd just completely forgotten that I used to do that. So this summer I've really just been writing and just sat outside in nature, and it's reignited my passion for it. And also, you know, the power of storytelling, for many reasons, but you know, how we can connect to each other, but how our stories can help inspire other people who might be struggling. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that's come out of the book, because I literally wrote my piece submission on the night that it had to be in, because somebody just tagged me as if you should write for this book, and I literally was writing right up till midnight and got my words in. And I never really, obviously I didn't really have time to think about how magical it could be. And I think for all of us, we've all been quite overwhelmed, haven't we, that it's been like a #1 bestseller in all these categories. But ultimately the most important thing that's come out of it is these new connections that we've all got with each other. And obviously I need some healing, like physical healing and probably inner healing, and just the diversity of everyone that's written, you know, like that we're all spiritual, but we've all got a really diverse, you know, I might believe in the universe, someone else might believe in God, so there's a huge diversity in the group. And it's just the empowerment of us all as women, you know, and the fact that, so 30 women who've got together and written have all overcome something really painful, and they've turned that into sort of power, which again is around our magic, isn't it? It's taking experience that's, you know, could have like, and we've all been empowered by that, and we've all said, right, I'm gonna let this happen to someone else, I'm going to share my story, and I'm gonna, you know, put myself out there. And sometimes that's quite a bold step as well, isn't it? But definitely for me, the best thing about the book is actually all of the connections that we've made, and meeting people from all walks of life that I wouldn't have necessarily met. And we had a Creative Hearts Zoom last week, didn't we? And it was really interesting. You know, I like to hear about the cooking, and again how that was so empowering for somebody, and that's her magic, you know, her magic's making her food, and that kind of thing. So again, like, it all comes back to just like magic is whatever we want it to be, you know. It's not necessarily again, we just had hocus pocus too, you know, it's not necessarily chopping up frogs and putting them in your cauldron. It's actually using all of nature and our belief, our intent to make our lives magical. You know, I don't personally believe that we should use magic for harm. You know, it should always be like a good, it should be about embracing nature and setting good intentions. So yeah, I don't agree. Obviously what we put out there we get back. So if you're going to do something with a bad intention, then you know, that's what's gonna bounce back. So yeah, for me, magic is making our own lives magical, and you know, doing all the people around us, the people that are in our lives that we choose to let in.
If you're watching right now, just drop us in the comments, drop us a like or heart, but also if you can write in what your definition of intuition, or your experience of intuition, or your definition of magic, or your experience with magic, we'd love to know. And I'll try and have a look at the comments as we're talking. So you're also part of this conversation as well. So it's not just us talking. We want to hear your feedback. And also I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, let me just go back on that point of like magic can be about, anything, because for me, I find magic in music. And I did actually pull a card earlier and it said, "You are the music." This is our card. Oh, it's not going to show it like
Yeah.
that.
God, yeah.
um, which is from mine and Brinda's deck, Self-Love and Creative Cards. And um, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting because I find magic in music. Like when I'm making music with other people, even if it's just by myself, like I just find it so magical. I find like it's beyond this world. I just feel something so deep. And like when I'm dancing to music as well, even just movement itself, um, that's where I feel magical, and I feel like the magic is within us. I feel like it's almost like when you're dancing or when you're creating, whatever that is, if it's cooking or gardening or doing something creative, it's almost like your cells transform. I get like this visualization of like even like stars within the body, like because we're all just made of cells anyway, but when we're connected to something we love, it's like that becomes our inner magic, that spark. We hear these words, but we don't always think about it of what that means. Like when you see someone, it lights you up and it it just feels so good. Like when you see someone in their element.
That's what goes back to this, like, we all need to reconnect with our inner child, because that's where we've all experienced the most magical time. So your dancing is and singing, it's something that
I
most
did.
of us would have done as a child, and probably, as like I said, we've gone through life and lost that part of us that dances around in a field or sings over the hill. I mean, one of my favorite quotes about magic was from the Wizard of Oz, where at the end she's gone on this journey, and at the end the sort of witch has you had the power all along.
Yeah,
And that's what we're saying now. It's that magic is within us.
yeah,
It is all about, it's what's inside us, and it's making sure that we believe and that we're connected to it.
yeah.
I pulled a card as well.
Oh,
Interesting.
great.
This was from, I've got lots of decks. This was from Super Attractor.
I love
And
Gabrielle.
yeah, the card I pulled said, "I trust that my intuition is always leading me in the right direction." I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
it.
I've actually
Yeah,
sang on Gabrielle Bernstein's stage. That was actually a magical moment for me.
yeah, I'm sure.
Um, yeah, I went to go and see her in London, and I actually cried. I had such a strong intuition that I was going to be on stage with her. Like it was so overwhelming that I had to go to the toilets because I couldn't cope with the feel. Like it was like such a strong feeling. Like I was like, I kept saying to the person next to me, "I'm going to be on that stage. I'm going to be on that stage," and I just was like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom and like almost had a panic attack. And then like someone calmed me down and I was like, oh, stop being so silly, Gemma. Like, what? I'm not going to be on the stage. Like, just that's stupid. And then suddenly she told this story about these women that had said that they were going to be on stage with her, and then it happened months later. And then for some reason, I don't know why, but my mouth just was like, I'm going to be on stage with you. And we were in front of 1,000 people, like we're in this big room. And I just like my mouth just said it, and then I was like, oh my God, what have I just said? And she just went, just a moment, please. Like I'd interrupted her sentence. And then she said, I'll come back to you in a minute. And anyway, she came back to me and she was like, oh, what do you do? And I just sort of said, oh, I do performing arts and a singer and actress and stuff. And then she was like, come on the stage. And then she said, do you want to sing? And so I did, and I totally messed up the end and I was really embarrassed, but then I sort of did a little dance to try and like make it a bit better. But I kind of like, yeah, it was a magical moment for me because I'd looked up to her so much and I read her books. I love Super Attractor. I love The Universe Has Your Back. And like I feel like sometimes we are given these opportunities to. I don't believe in putting people on pedestals or kind of thinking that just because someone's famous, because if people don't know Gabrielle Bernstein, she's been on like Oprah and things like that. So she's quite famous in the spiritual kind of realms. In the realms, well, in this, you know what I mean, probably in the realms as well. But I don't believe in putting people on pedestals like that. But I do. Oh my God, I'm actually looking at her signature right now because she signed a thing and it says trust that the universe has your back. And I think for me, I wasn't going to go to that event because I had my CBT and I was supposed to have a meeting at work on that day. And I told my CBT and I was like, I was supposed to go to this meeting. And then she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go to the event with Gabrielle Bernstein. I want to go to London. And she said, well, do it, go. And then I was worrying about it and I thought, oh God, what are they gonna say? Like, I'm not going. Oh, it wasn't like I didn't have to go, but it was something that I thought I had to go, you know. And then it turned out other people couldn't do that day anyway. So me telling them that that I couldn't go on that day, that actually helped everyone because there was other people as well which that day didn't suit them. And I think you've probably had this experience before as well. Like I think we rescheduled this live, didn't we? Because we both were feeling like that day that we put it on wasn't the day that we were going to do it. And I think I was a bit nervous about saying, can we reschedule? But then actually you were like, no, that would be good for me too. So sometimes when we're afraid of saying something, it actually disempowers the other person. Do you know what I mean with that?
Yeah, and you said earlier as well about synchronicity, and it's like really important to take, you know, part of developing our intuition if we've lost touch with it is about list, you know, looking out for the signs and like, you know, making sure that we take note of what's going on around us, because sometimes if we're a bit unsure, if we just allow ourselves to like, you know, look at the synchronicity.
Sorry, I'm trying to. That's me. Yeah, go on, carry on. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
see if there's
sometimes
any
yeah, if we
comments.
could like, so I think like I said earlier as well, you know, I think that we've all got magic at the heart of us and we all have intuition. It's something that we've all got in our subconscious, and it's something that we all need to nurture. No matter how intuitive you are, we can all still develop and nurture it further. And sometimes, you know, like you said, you needed guidance. You know, do I go to this event? You really wanted, your intuition was saying yes, and it was right because you went and you did this magical thing. And if you hadn't have listened to your intuition, you would have had your CBT and regretted it maybe for the rest of your life, or you wouldn't have known that this magical thing was going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's always like, for me, if I look back at the times I ignored my intuition, those are the times when my life has in some way had some sort of trouble or trauma, because deep down we already know we shouldn't be taking that path, whichever whatever it is that, you know, the times when we don't follow our intuition. I mean, you hear about it all the time, don't you? You see stories like someone who rang in sick, you know, the day of the London bombing, for example. They hadn't gone to work, and that, you know, that saved their life, and they probably didn't know why that morning, but that's a sort of extreme example of intuition, but maybe subconscious intuition, something stopped them going to work that day. And you hear all sorts of stories across the world, don't you, about
That
things
happened
like
to my granddad actually. This happened loads of times to my granddad, but there's a couple of examples where he was going to get on a boat because he lives on the Isle of, or did live, he's died now, but he lived on the Isle of Wight, and so he used to go to work across to Portsmouth, and one time he missed the boat and then it sank. So that was I don't know if that's actually intuition, but like but then there was another time where this is more an intuition one, where he I don't know the full story in it. It's like I never heard him tell the story, so it's just through like the generations. But it was something like he was in the war and there was two buttons that he had to press, and like the one that they told him to press was not the right one and he would have died like if he pressed it. But he actually heard the voice of Jesus and he was like, this is the one I need to press, and it was the right one. And like he like credits that as like, and he wasn't super Christian, like he was Christian but he wasn't like really like super Christian. It was just like he did believe in Jesus, but it was, yeah, he thinks that it saved his life. And I just, when I hear those kind of stories, especially from your own family, it's like it does make you believe, where not just believe, but you know it inside. You kind of feel like, yeah, there is something inside of us that knows what to do.
I
And
guess
sometimes,
it's
yeah,
our it's our inner compass, isn't it? Our
yeah,
intuition is our inner compass, that if we develop it and we listen to it and we trust it, it's always going to guide us in the right direction. And
definitely.
sometimes, like when we're working too much or we've got our minds are too busy, sometimes we can disconnect from our intuition, and the way to get that back again is to like stop and slow down, do some meditation to clear our minds, to like go for a walk in nature, literally follow our intuition. I don't know how many times you've done it where you just go for a walk and you don't know where you're going, and then you end up, you
Yeah.
find it really beautiful.
Or you bump into
You get
someone that
lost
you
in a
know,
nice
like,
forest, something.
yeah. I bump into people I know all the time, and like often it's like I'm just going for a walk and then suddenly like they're going through something like where they need my help and I'm just like there, and it's like
Yeah,
the right moment. Like,
again,
yeah,
we meet people when we're meant to, because people come in and out of our lives
yeah,
at that time when we need them or they need us,
yeah.
and it could be strangers as well, can't it?
Yeah, yeah, I've bumped into someone before and I think they were going through like a hard time, and I just sat with them and listened, and I remember afterwards, they just thank me for just giving them that time, to just listen. And it just, it gives you that, I think when you have that intuition, you know more what to do in situations. So when you're not following your intuition, there's always a lot of doubt and like worry and, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Am I going the right place? But when you're following your intuition, you just know you're doing that. You're not questioning yourself. You're just present. You're just there. You allow words to come out. You trust that, okay, these are the words that I'm being given right now. You don't hold on to them. You're not like, oh my God, this has got to be the right thing for this person specifically. You don't know if it's going to help them or not, but you just trust it because it's your intuition. So it might be just like you just say something and then suddenly that person goes, oh my God, yeah, I resonate so much with that. And you're just like, oh, that's wonderful. You don't know that that's going to help that person, but you trust that it will help someone.
And that can work in reverse. But how many times have we had gone to work, for example, and overplayed a conversation in our head that we need to have with someone, and then intuitively we've known that that's not the right time to have that
Yeah,
conversation, so we've held back. And if we
yeah,
had that conversation, it probably would have ended negatively, because if someone wasn't in the right frame of mind to discuss something.
yeah,
So again, yeah, it can work in reverse. We can sort of like intuitively know, oh, even though we've rehearsed it, it's not the right time to have that conversation. And again, it's about trusting
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah.
And sure, so the right time and the wrong time,
That's true. Yeah,
not for us, but for other people. So we might really need to say something, but that person is having a really bad day. And if we say whatever we've got to say, that could just be the final, not that we're going to say something horrible, but it might just be the final thing that they just have had enough that
Yeah.
day. And so
Yeah.
actually sometimes parking something is also intuitively a good thing to do,
Definitely.
especially if it's something we're not sure about, or you know, we've got questions around it. Sometimes as
Yeah.
well, going back and revisiting it allows our intuition to come back in and actually guide us a bit further.
Especially if you're triggered as well. So say if like, because what I used to do when I was triggered, I don't do it so much now, but sometimes I still do. But like I'll just blurt out everything I'm feeling and like blah 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 blah, blah like this has hurt me. I can't believe you said this, da 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 da, or whatever it is. And actually, your intuition sometimes goes, hold back a minute, a minute, hold back, just breathe, find out for yourself what has triggered you so much. Like, so I know for me, like sometimes it, like I get triggered around like rejection and like feeling like people don't like I want everyone to be interested in what I'm doing, whether that's my singing or my you know, creative arts conversations. And so if I'm talking to someone and talking, say if I'm like sharing about a creative piece of work and they're not interested, it can really like trigger that inner child of like, oh my God, they hate me, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, like there's something wrong with me, they don't like me, all these things. And like, then if I start to speak about that, if I'm like, why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you taking this seriously? You need to come to my event. You need to like watch my gigs. Why aren't you, you know, all these things or whatever it is that I want them to do. If I just blurt that out, then I start to feel like actually I've not taken into account. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they're thinking about something else at that moment. So, for example, it might be a family member's just, you know, told them that someone's died, or maybe it's not that serious. Maybe it's just that they've had a hard time at work and they're very tired. And then I'm just spouting off about this song I've done or about, you know, a workshop I've got going on. And maybe it's not that they're not interested, but they just don't have the energy in that moment. And if I'm more intuitive, I'll recognize that and I'll maybe say to them, you know, is there anything you need right now? You know, how's your day been? Or, you know, how are you feeling? Is there anything I can help with? You know, parking my agenda aside, parking my passions, not that I'm going to ignore my passions, because my passions are great, and really like telling myself that, telling my inner child, you do matter, your work does matter, you are important, and you know the right people will love it. But it's just in that moment, if somebody's not resonating on whatever, for whatever reason, I have to accept that they do have their own life. And I've probably done that to someone else as well when I've been, you know, in whatever state.
And I think so some of that is a trauma response, isn't it? As if we've had trauma, like significant trauma, we can over explain, and we can
Yeah.
like you said, we can go. So learning ourselves to be able to take a step back and one, acknowledge we don't owe everyone an explanation. We're allowed to feel however we feel, and we don't have to apologize for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same way, neither do they. And
Yeah.
also, we all in life have very different passions. So
Yeah.
you might speak to someone whose passion is like a motorbike and taking it apart the weekend and putting it back together, and they really, it's nothing personal against you, they just don't give a stuff about you singing on the stage. And it doesn't mean they don't like you as a person, it's just
Yeah.
they just don't share that passion. So
Yeah.
when people are passionate, and you always, that passion's always going to shine through, that is your magic. It's just not take it personally if someone else's magic is something different. You know, like my brother likes fishing, going off fishing for 3 days. You know, I can't think of anything more boring. And you know, but I will, you know, I like my garden and my house is full of plants, my garden's full of plants. He'd be like, well, you know, we've got all that crap all over your house.
Yeah.
So it's about respecting that we all have differences as well, and that however people react towards us is never a reflection of us. It's always a reflection of them and what they're going through, and that can change in any given moment.
Yeah.
Which again is around, we said earlier about intuitively knowing the right and the wrong time to have conversations if they're difficult and challenging. Because again, part of recovering from trauma is setting boundaries and sometimes having those difficult conversations with people. And it's, we've done a lot of work to get to a place where we're able to put boundaries in. But people, if we've been walked over or we've been like quite quiet and we're empathetic and we let people walk all over us, when we do suddenly start putting boundaries in, they're like, what's happened to you? You've changed, something's wrong with you. And so we've got to deal with all that as well. So it's around basically protecting ourselves and grounding ourselves and knowing that I think I wrote something like it's not all about you. Like, it's not all about us, and it's like important for us to remember that, because when we are passionate we can get really carried away and that can be the only thing we talk about, and some people might just be sick of hearing about it, and it's literally it's not anything to get upset about. It is they're like you said, they're wondering what they're going to cook their 5 kids for tea, or the football's on later, or it is that they've got going on in their life. It could be something really mundane, but they are just like, yeah, all right, I know you're passionate, I know you love it, I've had enough, just park it. And it's easy, isn't it? Like, we've had conversations and we're all talking, like we had our meeting, didn't we? We all met for the first time and there was so much passion in that meeting. We could have gone on all night, but you needed to call, you had arrangements to go out, so it's around saying that's fine, we can come back to it later. I think as well, like when it's also about magic is about intent. So like we can so magic isn't like having spells, like getting your wands out or whatever. It is about even as simple as like when you get up in the morning and you're stirring your coffee, stirring it clockwise and setting the intention, today it's going to be a good day and I'm going to be happy. It's just little affirmations and things like that. And I think it's around, we don't have to be spiritual to do these things. It's about taking control and being positive and like looking for positive ways to cope, because we are all going to face tough times during our life, and it's about making sure we've got a toolkit, isn't it, of how we can cope with it and make it less painful. And there are undoubtedly, when we lose a loved one, that's kind of one of the worst pains, isn't it? But again, we can try and focus and look at the good things that they had in their life, and we can try and realize that they're still around us and that they haven't totally left us. And I know that for some people might be a bit way out there, but like my best friend died last year, and whenever I felt sad about it, I've gone and there's been like this red admiral butterfly in my garden, or a feather's fallen down. He's always giving me signs that he's still here. So I think it's like, although I feel sad, I also still know that he's around me and he's looking after me. And like we talked about spirit guides earlier, that he's still there. He's just not in his human form. And I think they're all things that we learn as we get older, aren't they? And we learn our own belief systems, because obviously if I said that to my dad, he'd be like, oh, I think you're a bit crazy, but
it's almost like
beliefs, but it's what we believe and what
it's what works for you. I think I get kind of annoyed with people that, again, I've got to let it go, but sometimes I'll share a story that's really meaningful to me, about a synchronicity that I had. Like, I know my grandma has, well, grandma used to call her, but like there's a couple of really strong things. So for example, one time we were on a family meeting where it was her side of the family, and I just happened to be like going through my books at the time, as in I was doing some moving up the stairs, and then like I opened a book while we were on that meeting and it had like a letter from her, as in she'd written in it. And then another time I was going to London where she used to live, and we were going to a musical, and she used to be an actress as well, so like, or she worked backstage a lot. And then I actually asked out loud. I said, "What am I gonna go go to see?" We will not We Will Rock You, School of Rock. I was going with my sister, and I said out loud, "What should I wear?" Like, literally said out loud. I never do this, but I just decided, what should I wear? And then I heard a drop of a necklace. It was my grand's, and it had me and my sister in it, a locket. And for me, that just doesn't have that. I've never asked what should I wear out loud, and that's never dropped in that way. And I just don't. I can't see how that can't be proof those two times as well. But then other people just say, "Oh no, it's just a coincidence. Like, when you die, you die." And it's so heartbreaking for me because I feel like, I know some people say, well, I don't need to believe that to believe in magic. I can just look around me and it's magical. I don't need to believe that people live on. But I just think, I don't know, it's just heartbreaking for me that I feel like there's so much proof around us that if we just take a moment to listen.
Absolutely, yeah. So if we again, from Walt Disney, I think, said it years ago. Those who don't believe in magic will never find it. So it is a shame that some people are closed off.
Yeah. I don't
And
think it's all that always, but it's a bit like you said about having a different kind of magic. It's a kind of magic. I don't know, I've got that song in my head now.
yeah, so wait, it's the context, isn't it? So we're not talking about Paul Daniels pulling a rabbit out of a hat. We're talking about our soul magic, or in our inner magic,
Yeah, magic.
and the magic of the nature and everything
Yeah,
that's around us,
yeah.
and finding that magic. And maybe, like, obviously I've worked in hospitals all my life, I'm not a clinician like that, but maybe that's why some people suffer more from depression, because they don't have this scope to
Yes.
see the magic around.
Yes. I think
um
that's it. I
and
think
and
it's a
that's not
block.
me medically
No,
dying anything,
no,
but
there's a block to the magic. And I
I
think
think, yeah,
when you
positive.
reawaken that, like, I was seeing my friend actually this morning, and like, when I first met them, they were in that more depressed state, but now they've actually, because they've done a lot of this work, on I don't even know if you call it spiritual work, but inner work, looking at themselves and their thoughts and their feelings, and really working on that. And now I feel like that they're not, well, not even feel like, they even said like they're not in that space at all now. They, not at all, but now and again probably, but you know what I mean, as in they're now more alive and awake to what's around them. So if you're in spending time in nature and stuff like that, and if you're doing that on a regular basis, you can't be depressed because you're connected to something huge. Like, it's impossible to not see. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna say that again. Sorry, I don't mean to say that, because I know some people are just depressed and that's what they are. So, as in, no, it's not what they are, but it's how they're experiencing it. So I don't want to belittle someone's experience if that's what you're going through. But I just can't imagine if, like, for example, there's a book I've got. It's called Lost Connections. I've forgotten. I think it's Joe. Johan, I don't know his surname, but basically it describes the 5 things, or I think it's 5, that will that cause depression, but also that will lift depression. And he basically says it's about, like, our connection to other people, our connection to nature, our having a meaningful purpose in life, and believing in something like greater than yourself, something like that anyways. So I think if you have all of those things in place, like, you're connected to other people, you have meaningful work, you are out in nature, I just don't think, if all of those things are in place, Because if one of those things is not in place, yes, you can be depressed. Because if you have lots of friends, and you go out in nature a lot, but you haven't got a meaningful purpose in life, then yeah, you can be depressed. And same if you've got a meaningful purpose in life, but you maybe don't go out in nature, you can be depressed. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to have at least like most of them in place in order to not be depressed. But yeah, I think if you do, I think I don't see how someone can be depressed if they have that connection. Now, I'm not talking about just having friends or just going outside. I'm talking about having that actual connection with nature and actual connection with people.
So yeah, and I think so I sort of made some notes earlier because I was like, oh, I might get stage fright. I don't do live so often, not a pro like you. And I sort of thought, what would my 5 top tips be to reconnect to our inner magic if you feel, you know, like you are overwhelmed with life and you're burnt out. I mean, December's probably like one of the worst months for burnout for people, isn't it? They're rushing around trying to finish all their work so they can have Christmas break. We've got strikes, so parcels on. We've just, the whole country at the moment is just a very sad state of carnage. And so, you know, I think to reconnect to your inner magic is like listen to the universe, look for those synchronicities, you know, like just be sometimes just say I need a sign, you know, like you said, just say it out loud, I need a sign. You know, don't worry about sounding mad, just either say it out loud or just say it in your head, you know, show me a sign that I'm on the right track. Or and then, you know, let our inner child out. Like, so sometimes think back, if you are feeling sad about anything, and we all have moments of sadness, is to actually stop and think about a time when you were laughing, when you were happy, and just try and reconnect and ground yourself in that time. So like, you know, like sometimes I know, like after Dan died for the first year, I was a bit like, I can't remember the last time I really laughed, just because, like, you know, obviously I lost him and it was hard, but I try and always think back, like when we were laughing, what we did and all those kind of things. And I think it's like, so my 5 kind of simple tips is like basically keep your life as simple as possible. And I think lots of people overcomplicate everything in life and overthink, and I've been guilty of that in certain parts of my life. Is to really take in the present moment, everything that's around us, appreciate what we've got and not focus on so much what we haven't got. To consciously choose our belief systems. And again, that comes from, you know, we grow up, our parents might have a different religious background to us, or, you know, different belief. Like you said, some people will be like spirituality, you're a bit bonkers, that kind of thing. But it's to consciously choose your own beliefs. You know, what do you believe in, what do you connect with, and what makes you feel happiness. And then to remember who you used to be. So go back to that time when you were happy, when you did feel confident and strong, and remember all the achievements that you've made throughout your life. So, you know, like you said about dancing on the stage, that's going to be one of your up there moments forever. So if you're ever feeling sad, you can go back and revisit that and go, wow, I did that and it was amazing. And you can instantly feel that magic again. And then literally sometimes change it up a bit, just do something different. So if you've been stuck in the house all week writing, or you've been in the office all week, is just go and do something completely different, and just you know, change things a little bit and just find a spark there. Because sometimes if we do the same thing over and over again, we're missing out, like you said. And it's good, like, so we said about diversity earlier, didn't we? Meeting different people and listening to different people's stories. I love listening to people's stories. And like, you know, when I worked in the hospital, when I was clinical and on the wards, that I used to sit and talk to the patients quite a lot, and a lot of medical staff talk to them about their illness.
Yeah.
But because I'm spiritual, because I'm empathetic, I always used to speak to people about their lives, you know, like, and that kind of, when you're stuck in hospital for a long period of time, it can be pretty depressing. Let's face it, none of us want to be in that situation. But just taking an interest in someone and saying, oh, what did you, you know, like, So most of the hospital population are over 75 in most areas, rural areas anyway. So just say, you know, like, oh, what did you do when you were younger? What was your career? Or tell me about your husband, you know, how did you fall in love? Those kind of things. And those little, like having those conversations and connections, like you said, it's really important. And it also brings a little bit of happiness to someone else. And I think that is magical. And just being able to listen to people and also letting them talk and hearing what they've got to say.
I remember one time I was going through a bad period, and I actually had some, I think, I don't know if it was someone in I had to go to the hospital again at A&E because I was going through like a mental health part time, and I had my Gabrielle Bernstein book with me, and one of the, well, I know this sounds really bad, but like when you have mental health things, sometimes they call the police, but it's not because I didn't do, you know, like they didn't arrest me or anything, but like they
No,
just
to make,
sometimes
it's to make sure
just
you're
to make
safe,
sure
isn't
we're safe. Yeah, yeah.
it?
But anyway, one of the police officers, she was really nice, and she was like, "Oh, I've read Gabrielle Bernstein. I really like that book." And then just her talking to me and making me feel like normal and like I wasn't crazy, you know, and I was fine after. Like I didn't end up going to like hospital for after that bit. Like I just went home again, and that was actually probably the start of my proper recovery. Like I'd been recovering, but I really hadn't fully committed to, you know, because I, after that, I think I started anger management, and I started like more, I started training as a coach, and like more like really committed to my journey, if that makes any sense. Whereas before it was kind of like, yeah, I'm on this healing journey, but I'm still not very well, if that makes sense. Like as in like I was still having a, which I'm not blaming myself for at all, because it wasn't my fault. Do you know what I mean? Because like I know the pain of what I was going through, and it wasn't just like, oh, this person's crazy. It's like I was in so much pain that day. Like I was crying on the floor, like literally of the hospital, just on my knees, and I was listening to this song like over and over and over again, and it was called Angels in the Airways. It was by a rapper. I've forgotten the name of, I do listen to them a lot, but I, yeah, sometimes I remember the songs more than
Yeah.
the name of who
I,
it is. But in this moment, it's not coming to me. It might come to me in a moment, but
and that makes perfect sense, because again, like when you've been through trauma, depending on our upbringing, but most of us are brought up to keep it quiet, not let our feelings out. And so then if we do start talking about them, like you said, we can get labeled. And you know, we've all got a mental health state as well, a mental health and well-being within all of us, and there are things that happen to us that are going to make us feel mentally unwell.
yeah,
You know, there's organic mental illness where people don't necessarily know it's, you know, some sort of chemical imbalance, but there are things that happen, and we have reactive things to that. And you know, we, if more of us could be open about these things without feeling stigmatized, it would help people heal a lot quicker, wouldn't it? Because you know, like sometimes our families don't want to hear awful things that have happened to us, and they kind of tell us to shut up. Or like I grew up where, you know, if I cried, it was a sign of weakness, for example. So you then learn to suppress those feelings, which then can make things bigger as when you're older and you deal with something. It might be that suddenly that's more of a catastrophe because you've always had to keep it in. So like when I didn't cry for years and years, and then all of a sudden I did, and it was like for a month. I think when my dog died, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know I could cry, like let alone for like that amount of tears. I'm surprised I didn't drown. But actually that crying was, I needed it, my body needed it. So again, it's about letting all of us express our emotions and having safe spaces, isn't it? Because intuitively, again, if we hold things in, we're blocking our intuition, we're blocking our magic, we can't sometimes see the wood for the trees if we're in a bad place. And that's where having a network of magical people around us can remind us of that. There is, even so, like for me, since I've been ill, I've had lots of friends that disappear because maybe it makes them feel uncomfortable, they don't know what to say. And I've also had like some of the most amazing, kind strangers that have talked to me, sometimes nothing to do with being ill, they just talk to me as a person, which is what I want. I'm not a disease, I am a human. And the power of people speaking, again, like storytelling and sharing our stories and inspiring us, like you said about no one should be up there, but it's the story behind Gabriella Bernstein, isn't it? It's the inspiration, because she's gone through something, she's got herself out, and then she's chosen to use that to help other people. So I think I think we should have people that we look up to and inspire us. And again, that's sometimes that makes me feel sad, when women are always in competition with each other. And actually we should all be in collaboration, because we've all got something to offer. We're all unique, and we might do the same thing, but we might do it from a different place. And we've got there's enough, like in coaching, there's so many people that are competitive, and actually it's not about being competitive, it's about holding a safe space, and the right people will come to us, because the people that come to me might not connect with you. The people that come to you might not connect with me. And so it's also, when we've got that network as well, if somebody came to me and I couldn't help them, I want to be able to have a group of people that I can go, well, actually, I can't help you, but this person's amazing and she's exactly the right person for you. And I think really important is like, intuitively knowing that there's some people, so if someone's gone through something so similar to us, it might be a trigger for us, and it's important for us to protect ourselves, and also not to project what we've been through onto that person, because we can have all been through the same. So with domestic abuse, for example, we can have all been through a very similar situation, being beaten up or being gaslight, all of those things. But how that's happened and how we've dealt with it is always going to be different from person to person. So we can't always help other people as much as we want to. We're not always the right person. So I think having the network and having other women that we look up to, or men, depends on it, because there are, we do have some men coaches, is actually being able to refer and signpost people, because it's about what's doing best for that person, not what's best for us.
I was just gonna ask you, do you want to finish your sentence before?
No, that's fine.
All right. I was just going to ask you about, because I know that you've been talking to Audrey now, since our workshop that we did the other day. So for anyone that didn't make the workshop or who hasn't seen Audrey yet, would you be able to just share a little bit about how that was for you and how you found that, and also like what it's led to you now, looking at Tao healing and...
So for me, again, this goes down to our intuition and our faith. When I got diagnosed with my illness, which is a rare autoimmune disease, I've got a mass in my bone here, I was told that it's incurable and that they can't cut it out. And I was offered chemotherapy drugs, but they aren't actually a cure. And then I was fighting for 2 years for these anti-TNF drugs, so they're anti-tumor and necrosis factor drugs. And when I actually got them, I then wasn't well enough to have them. And these are strong toxic drugs. They wipe out your immune system. And I kept thinking, like, this has been such hard to get these drugs, that there's something inside me kept thinking they're not meant to be for me. They're not the answer. And obviously with a pharmacy background, for me some people can't accept my thought patterns around that, but for me, I've always felt that there's something else, a different answer, and I've always had faith that I don't know what it is, but there will be something, because I don't want to have toxic drugs that make my hair fall out, make me sick, and also that there is no kind of remote guarantee that it will help. So I've been looking for quite a long time for alternative and holistic therapies. So in the workshop we did with Audrey, she talked about her healing and gave some examples, and we've spoken again since. And actually, even more interesting, I hope she doesn't mind me saying, she was saying about her tinnitus. Don't know if she said that publicly before. And she was telling me about how she had her records read and how it came back to something in a sort of maybe a past life or something she did when she was younger. And that all sort of links in spiritually. So I'm interested in having my records read as well to see, because I kind of have a feeling about why I've got this. It's because I disassociated from my trauma, and then it's manifested somewhere because it has to come out, all those hormones. But yeah, with Audrey, she gave me the sort of healing song. I can't remember what it's called now. I listened to it like twice.
Peace and Harmony.
Yeah, the Love, Peace and Harmony song. And we had a talk. She was out walking her dog, and we had a talk about how she came to find that as a way of healing, and about different people that it's healed, and different types of cancers, of different people with heart disease, all sorts of different things. And so obviously I'm quite open-minded about it. I've been listening to the song, and I'm going to have a session with her at some point. And also I've signed up, they've got some webinars and things. But I listened to the song, and the second day that I listened to it, I have really severe pain. And the pain, when I was listening to it, the pain got worse. But then afterwards, it just lifted for the whole day. And I spoke to Audrey. I texted her and I said, "Is this like normal? Is that?" And she said, "Yes, that can happen." And obviously, I'm interested as well, because Harley's got a tumor in his throat, and he's a living example of like energy healing, because that's all I do with him. He's not on medication. His prognosis was 8 to 12 weeks to live, and that was like nearly 2 years ago. So I think there's, for me, and going back historically, my great aunt was a spiritual healer, so I've always had a belief that can work, because she used to tell me stories about how people would come to visit her, and she was the channel for the energy, and it would go through her, the warmth. And people with like ganglions, I don't know if you know what a ganglion is, you might be too young. So it's like a lump. People used to get these like lumps on their hands and things, and she would just touch it and it would disappear. And there was like an old wives' tale that you'd hit it with a really hard book, which was usually a Bible, because that was the biggest book that people had, but to try and disperse it. But yeah, she used to tell me all these, and I didn't meet her till I was about 16, 17, because my granddad, they thought of her as a witch because they were Christian. But I've always believed and known that people can heal spiritually, from your soul, from using that energy rather than having to use medicine. And let's say at the moment I'm on a bit of a combination of both, but I really want to get off of these toxic medicines, because they're not helping me, they're not going to cure me, and I just want to find a way that manages my pain and makes my life gives me a better quality of life. But again, it comes down to, a lot of people say to me like, oh, they think I should be sat at home crying all day, but I don't. I really appreciate everything I've got every day as a gift, especially with like Harley. We go in the garden, like yesterday I've got flowers blooming again that shouldn't be in bloom. And it's just the little things, like every day we get a beautiful sunset, or I get to see the moon, all those things. And I'm just really grateful for all of those things. I think every part of our journey takes us to where we need to be. And even if it seems difficult and challenging at the time, and I've definitely had some of those, but I've always had an inner belief that somehow everything will be all right. And I've always had the belief that I don't always need to know how.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, so it was like just pre-pandemic when I got diagnosed, and I was told I needed this drug to stop it growing and all this kind of thing. And again, we're nearly 3 years, and I haven't got the scan to prove it, but I do feel that the energy healing I've been doing, it's definitely stopped growing.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's changed slightly. It'd be interesting. I'd like to have a scan to see if it looks like what I picture it to look like.
Well, Go on.
No, that's fine. Go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I have like a testimonial of like coming off pharmaceutical drugs when I was diagnosed with bipolar, and they told me I'd never be off the Depakote that I was on, and I think it was like maybe five years I was on it, or 6 years, and I just came off them. No symptoms after, like, yeah, I still had mental health problems, but it was, I got re-diagnosed anyway with BPD, which doesn't have drugs anyway. And then after that, I don't even relate to that label anymore, because I did an online test around, do you have BPD? I can't even say it. Like, this is the thing.
BPD.
And it was like, no, I don't have the symptoms of it, anymore. And I know that's different because it's mental health, but the same can be applied to physical health as well, where, these miraculous things that doctors say is not possible, can be possible. But it doesn't mean to say don't trust doctors, because I did need to be on the drugs for that lot. Like, I did, well, I didn't have a choice. I was put on them. This is part
I
of the
think
problem. But
education has
like,
the use and the purpose, and I think for
I probably
things
did
like,
have a choice. I'm just saying,
yeah,
I don't mean they forced me,
it's,
but
yeah,
it's just
it's
like,
like,
well, what else are you gonna do? Like, we're made to feel that we don't have a choice, basically.
yeah, and obviously maybe because I'm qualified in pharmacy, that gives me a different slant. I will say to my doctor, I'm not having that drug, it's toxic. You haven't got any data to prove that it's going to help me. Someone else might be, oh, it's a hope. With me, I'm like, it's not a good enough hope, and I'm not going to have it. So they're like, oh, and I'm quite adamant about what goes into my body, and I look for, again, a bit of a conflict between science and spirituality, because again, I will always choose a herbal or holistic medication for myself if I can, or therapy. So ideally, yeah. So my painkillers were supposed to be a stopgap after my surgery, and then I just, because of the pandemic, got left on them. And everyone reaches a saturation point with drugs. So even like with antidepressants, you've got to keep, the dose will have to keep going up, because eventually it won't work anymore. But it's only masking it's not curing you from within. It's a sticking plaster. So it's kind of like, if there's a way for us to feel better, and it might be, so Hay House, who published a lot of the cards that we talked about, including Gabrielle Bernstein's, they have got a series called Radical Remissions, and these are people with like cancers that normally kill people, like liver cancer, that quite fast killing cancers. And the stories there, so mind over matter, are amazing. And I'm not going to advocate that everyone can get better, because I've experienced through my career working in oncology, but definitely people with a positive mindset outlive those who just accept what they're told. I have seen people, oh, you're going to told you're going to die, and then quite quickly they deteriorate and die. And then I've seen other people told they're going to die, and they're like, no, I'm not going to die, I'm not having it. And those people, they like,
I've got a friend that wrote a song when he was told he was going to die, and he called it "Never Say Die," and he's still alive years.
Yeah, I've seen it. So like one of my well, we are friends back in the day. So he was one of the first people in the country to have a heart and lung transplant, and the life expectancy even with that was like 2 to 5 years, and we're like, what, so I'm 50 now, and he's like the same age, so he's like 30 years. So I think he's like the oldest patient in the country. And again, he is he's a not a vicar, what to call it, so where they like, he's like preaches in church, not a preacher, I can't remember the name of it, but he's Christian anyway. And but he has a belief, he has a belief system that, and he's still here, and he's still doing really well. It's amazing. So it's like Harley, isn't it? He doesn't know that he's got cancer, so he's not just going to die because the vet said he was. He just gets up every morning, runs around like a lunatic all day, and then goes to sleep. So it's kind of, and that goes back again, doesn't it, to children and inner child. I was saying to someone the other day about my little sister, she's had lots of heart operations, and when she was a child, she didn't know, she wasn't aware of the build up. So she would go to Bristol, have open heart surgery or whatever, but the next day she'd be running around the ward, you know, she just, because she wasn't aware. And then it wasn't until she got to like maybe 16, 18, and then she was involved in all the build up and the worry, and then that whole experience changed for her. So our resilience, again, if we can take ourselves back to that childlike feeling, I think it helps us be more resilient with all these situations that we face, because when we're a kid, we're a bit like, aren't we, what's the worst that can happen? You know, like when your mum says don't climb over that gate, you'll rip your clothes, you're like, well, okay. So it's kind of, yeah, I think it's always, if we can always take ourselves back and ground ourselves, we can find some sort of peace in any situation, can't we?
Definitely. So we're going to wrap up now, just because well, we spoke quite a lot today, so it's probably quite a lot to take in for everyone, but hopefully you've gained something from this live. If you've not caught the beginning bit, there will be a replay. But thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on the show today and chatting with me, and it's been a pleasure as always. Every time I talk to you, it's really fun and lovely. So yeah, first of all, thank you. And also for anyone who wants to come and join us, the early bird tickets are now available. I'll be putting them a link below. So you can purchase your tickets for our workshop if you want to join us. I really do highly recommend, like Rachel was saying before, she came along to Audrey's workshop not last month, but like, it was a couple of weeks ago, and it's really beneficial, like the benefits of coming along and joining in as a group when we connect together are, you know, you can get benefits from a video, like watching us talk obviously has its benefits in itself. Is that Harley who's joining us?
Okay.
So I did say probably include a little bit just at the end. So yeah, thank you everyone who's been watching. Please drop your comments, give us a like, heart, and join us if you can.
If people want to know anything particular about how to connect with
drop any questions. Also, don't worry about you know, if you can't afford it, just drop us a message, because we want to, you know, support you really, and we want to obviously support ourselves as well, so that's why we put a price on it, because we're supporting ourselves, but we also want to support you the best we can. So please don't worry if you think, oh my gosh, I can't afford it or anything like that. Just drop us a message, and yeah, that's it really. I think we're done, so I'll stop the live, and yeah, if you've got your questions, anything, comments, just drop it underneath, and I'll we'll reply after. Yeah, so also follow Rachel. You're on Instagram and LinkedIn, aren't you? So are you all right to post those links underneath after?
Yeah,
great.
In the group now.
And follow this page at Creative Hearts and Gemma Rosenthal. Okay, see you soon.
Okay, bye.